I showed up at the Port of Tacoma at 4:30 in the morning, my first day as a dock worker, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I'd been working in coffee shops for the past 6 years, making lattes and smiling at customers, and now here I was, standing in front of these massive shipping containers and industrial equipment that looked like it could crush me without even noticing. The job paid almost triple what I'd been making, and I desperately needed the money. My student loans weren't going to pay themselves, and Seattle rent wasn't getting any cheaper. I was 28 years old, and I felt like a kid on his first day of school, except instead of other kids, I was surrounded by these weathered, tough-looking men who all seemed to know exactly what they were doing. They moved with this confidence, this purpose, and I just stood there, holding my brand-new hard hat, probably looking like I'd wandered onto the wrong movie set. That's when I saw him, Dante Cruz. He was the dock foreman, and I knew it immediately because everyone seemed to orbit around him. He was maybe 40, with salt and pepper hair cut short, these broad shoulders that filled out his high-visibility vest, and hands that looked like they'd built half the city. But it was his face that got me. He had these deep brown eyes that crinkled at the corners, and even though his expression was serious as he talked to his crew, there was something warm there, something that made him seem approachable despite the obvious authority he carried. I was trying to figure out where I was supposed to go, looking at the paperwork they'd given me during orientation, when I felt someone stop beside me. I looked up, and it was him. Dante. Up close, he was even more striking. There was this scar along his jawline, faded with time, and his face had the kind of character that only comes from actually living life, not just passing through it. "You look lost," he said, and his voice was this deep rumble that I felt in my chest, not unkind, just matter of fact. "That obvious?" I tried to laugh, but it came out nervous. "First day, I'm Caspian Moore." "Dante Cruz, I'm the foreman." He extended his hand, and when I shook it, his grip was firm but not crushing. His palm was calloused, warm. "Don't worry about looking lost. Everyone does on their first day. This place can be overwhelming." "That's an understatement," I admitted. "I'm coming from food service. This is different." Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, exactly, but understanding. "Food service to dock work is a hell of a jump. What made you switch?" "Money," I said honestly, and I was tired of smelling like espresso and cleaning up after people who treated me like I was invisible. He nodded slowly, like he got it. "Well, you're definitely not invisible here. You screw up, everyone notices. But you do good work, everyone notices that too. Come on, I'll walk you through your first day. Can't have you getting crushed by a container on my watch." I followed him across the dock, and he started explaining everything. Not in that condescending way some people do when they're teaching you something, but like he actually wanted me to understand. He showed me the different types of containers, how the cranes worked, the safety protocols that weren't just rules but the things that kept people alive. He introduced me to the equipment, let me get a feel for the controls on a forklift under his supervision, corrected my posture and grip with patient adjustments. "Your hands," he said at one point, and before I could react, he'd taken my hand in his, repositioning my fingers on the forklift controls. "Like this. See? More control, less strain on your wrist." His touch was professional, brief, but I felt it everywhere. The morning went by faster than I expected. Dante didn't just dump me with someone else and walk away. He stayed with me, checking in, answering my endless questions, making sure I understood not just what to do but why. When I made mistakes, and I made plenty, he'd stop me with this calm patience and show me the right way. "You're doing fine," he told me around 10, when I'd just knocked over a stack of pallets. "Everyone fucks up. What matters is you learn from it and don't do it again." "I'm slowing everyone down," I said, frustrated with myself. "You're learning. That's different. The guys know it's your first day." He paused, then added, "You've got good instincts, I can tell. You're thinking about what you're doing, not just going through motions. That's going to serve you well here." The compliment hit me harder than it should have. I wasn't used to being seen like that, especially not by someone like him. Someone who seemed so completely competent and sure of himself. Lunch break came and I was exhausted. I found a spot on some crates away from everyone else, pulling out the sandwich I'd packed. I was just starting to eat when Dante appeared again, his own lunch in hand. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. "It's your doc," I said, then immediately regretted how that sounded. "I mean, yeah, of course." He sat down beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with the industrial smell of the docks, something woodsy and clean. We ate in silence for a minute and it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt almost companionable. "So, coffee shops," he said eventually. "Which ones?" I told him about the places I'd worked, the regular customers, the rush of the morning crowd. He listened like he was actually interested, asking questions, laughing at my stories about the weird drink orders people would come up with. "I'm more of a black coffee guy myself," he admitted, "but I respect the craft. Takes skill to make those fancy drinks." "Different kind of skill than this," I said, gesturing at the dock around us. "Skill is skill. Don't sell yourself short." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt something shift in the air between us. "You're going to be good at this, Caspian, I can tell." The way he said my name, with that slight emphasis, made something warm unfold in my chest. I looked away, focusing on my sandwich, trying to ignore the way my heart had started beating faster. The afternoon was harder than the morning. My body wasn't used to this kind of physical labor, and every muscle was starting to protest. But Dante was still there, still checking on me, still guiding me through each task. He'd appear at my elbow when I was struggling with something, his voice calm and steady, his presence somehow both commanding and comforting. "Take your time," he'd say. "Speed comes with practice. Focus on doing it right." When my shift finally ended at 3, I was completely wiped out. I was heading toward the parking lot when I heard Dante call my name. I turned, and he was walking toward me, his hard hat under his arm. "You did good today," he said when he reached me. "Really good. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you kept up better than most first-timers." "Thanks," I managed. "And thank you for, walking me through everything. You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "That's my job, making sure my crew is safe and knows what they're doing. But also," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, "you seemed like you needed someone to believe in you today, so I did." I didn't know what to say to that. This man, this capable, confident, attractive man, had spent his entire day making sure I didn't fail, and now he was standing here in the late afternoon light, telling me he believed in me. "I'll see you tomorrow?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Tomorrow." I drove home in a daze, my body aching, my mind full of Dante, the way he'd looked at me, the patience in his voice, the brief touches when he was showing me how to do something. I told myself I was just grateful for his help, that I was reading too much into his kindness. He was probably just a good foreman, someone who took training new workers seriously. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about his hands, his voice, the way he'd said my name. The next morning, I was less lost, but no less nervous. I got there at 4:30 again, and Dante was already there, talking to some of the crew. When he saw me, he nodded, this small acknowledgement that somehow felt significant. The day followed a similar pattern. Dante checking on me, guiding me, teaching me. But there was something else now, something I couldn't quite name. The way he'd stand just a little closer than necessary when explaining something. The way his hand would linger on my shoulder when he was correcting my posture. The way he'd catch my eye across the dock and smile just slightly. Or maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I wanted it so badly that I was seeing things that weren't there. A week passed, then two. I was getting better at the work, more confident, making fewer mistakes. But Dante still found reasons to check on me, to work near me, to pull me aside and show me something new. The rest of the crew had started to notice. "Foreman's taken a shine to you," one of the older guys, Marcus, said to me one day at lunch. He didn't sound jealous, just observant. "That's good. Means you're doing something right." "He's just making sure I don't screw up," I said. Marcus laughed. "Kid, he doesn't spend that much time with anyone. Trust me, been working here 15 years. Dante's a good boss, but he's not usually that hands-on after the first few days. You're special somehow." The comment stayed with me. Was I special? Or was Marcus reading too much into it the same way I was? It was my third week when everything changed. We were doing inventory in one of the warehouses, just Dante and me. It was quieter here, away from the noise of the main dock, just the sound of our footsteps and the scratch of Dante's pen on his clipboard. "You've come a long way," Dante said, not looking up from his notes. 3 weeks ago you could barely operate a pallet jack. Now you're running the forklift like you've been doing it for years." "I had a good teacher," I said. He looked up at that, his eyes meeting mine. We were standing between 2 rows of shelving, the space narrow, and suddenly the air felt thick with something unspoken. "Caspian," he said, and there was something different in his voice now, something raw. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to know that it doesn't affect your job. You're good at what you do, and you've earned your place here. This isn't about that." My heart was pounding. "Okay." He set down his clipboard, ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not usually like this. I'm professional. I keep my personal life and my work life separate. But you," he took a breath, "you've gotten under my skin. From that first day when you were standing there looking lost, and you were honest about being scared, about needing this job, and then every day since, watching you work so hard, push through even when you were exhausted, ask questions, actually care about doing things right. And the way you smile when you finally get something, like it's this personal victory. I look for that smile now. I look for you." I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. This man, who I'd been trying so hard not to develop feelings for, was standing here telling me, "I'm 42 years old," he continued. "I've been out for 20 years. I've had relationships, and I've been careful not to mix work with personal stuff, because it gets complicated. But I can't stop thinking about you. And if I'm reading this wrong, if you're not interested, or if this makes you uncomfortable, tell me now and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. You'll still have your job, and I'll be nothing but professional. But if there's any chance that you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling." "I do," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "God, Dante, I do. I've been trying so hard not to, because you're my boss, and you're older, and you're so far out of my league it's not even funny. But I think about you all the time. The way you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The way you're patient and kind, but also strong and confident. The way you say my name. I feel like I'm going crazy." He stepped closer, and now we were just inches apart. I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the way his chest was rising and falling with quick breaths. "You're not out of your league," he said softly. "You're brave and honest, and you work harder than anyone I've seen in years. You're beautiful, Caspian. I've been trying not to notice, but you are. And the way you look at me sometimes, like I'm something special when you're the one who's special." "Can I kiss you?" I whispered. Instead of answering, he closed the distance between us, his hand coming up to cup the back of my neck, and then his lips were on mine. It was gentle at first, tentative, like he was giving me a chance to pull away. But I didn't want to pull away. I wanted to fall into this, into him. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shoulders, and he made this sound low in his throat that sent heat rushing through me. We broke apart, both breathing hard, and he rested his forehead against mine. "We should talk about this," he said, "about what this means, how we handle it. I don't want you to feel pressured or like your job depends on this." "My job doesn't depend on this," I said firmly. "I know that. You've made that clear. This is separate. This is about you and me, not foreman and worker." "Okay," he smiled, and it was that same smile that had transformed his face that first day, but warmer now, more intimate. "Okay, so Caspian Moore, would you like to have dinner with me? Somewhere away from the docks, where we're just two people getting to know each other." "Yes," I said. "Absolutely yes." We managed to finish the inventory, though it took longer than it should have because we kept stopping to look at each other, to smile, to steal small touches. When we emerged from the warehouse, I felt like everything had shifted. The world looked different, brighter, full of possibility. That night, Dante took me to this small Italian restaurant in Georgetown. It was the kind of place that felt lived in, comfortable, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. We sat across from each other, and without the hard hats and high-visibility vests, without the noise of the docks around us, we were just two men on a date. He told me about growing up in Yakima, the son of Mexican immigrants who'd worked in the orchards, about coming out to his family at 22 and being terrified, only to have his mother hug him and tell him she'd always known. About working his way up from dock worker to foreman over 15 years, earning every promotion through hard work and dedication. I told him about my family in Spokane, about being the first one to go to college and then dropping out after 2 years because I couldn't afford it and didn't know what I wanted to do anyway, about coming out in high school and being mostly accepted, but always feeling like I didn't quite fit anywhere, about the years of drifting through coffee shops, feeling stuck until I saw the listing for the dock job and decided to take a chance. "I'm glad you took that chance," Dante said, reaching across the table to take my hand. His thumb traced circles on my palm. "I'm glad you showed up looking lost." "I'm glad you walked me through it," I said. "Every step." We talked until the restaurant was closing, until the servers were giving us pointed looks. Dante paid despite my protests, and we walked out into the cool Seattle night. "Can I drive you home?" he asked. "I'd like that." In his truck, an old Ford that was meticulously maintained, he held my hand while he drove. It felt so natural, so right, like we'd been doing this for years instead of hours. When we pulled up to my apartment building in Beacon Hill, neither of us wanted the night to end. "I want to do this right," Dante said. "I want to take you on dates, learn everything about you, not rush this, but I also want to kiss you again. Is that okay?" I answered by leaning over and kissing him, slower this time, deeper. His hand tangled in my hair, and I felt that same heat from earlier, but also something more, something that felt like the beginning of something real. The next few weeks were a careful balance. At work, we were professional. Dante was still my foreman, still teaching me, still guiding me, but we were careful not to show favoritism, not to let our personal relationship affect the job. It was hard sometimes when I wanted to touch him, to kiss him, to just be near him. But we'd agreed on boundaries and we stuck to them. Outside of work, though, we were inseparable. Dante showed me his Seattle, the places he'd discovered over 2 decades of living here. We hiked in Discovery Park, watched the sunset from Golden Gardens, got coffee at small neighborhood cafes where he ordered his black coffee and I got my complicated lattes. We cooked dinner at his house in West Seattle, a small craftsman that he'd been slowly renovating himself. He showed me the work he'd done, the tile he'd laid in the bathroom, the deck he'd built, and I could see the pride and care he put into everything he did. We talked about everything, our fears, our dreams, our past relationships. He told me about his ex-boyfriend of 5 years, how they'd grown apart, wanted different things. I told him about my handful of short relationships, how I'd never really felt like I'd found the right person until now. "This feels different," I admitted one night, lying in his bed, my head on his chest, his fingers running through my hair. "I've never felt this way about anyone." "Me neither," he said quietly. "And I've been doing this a lot longer than you. But there's something about you, Caspian. You make me want to be better, do better. You make me feel young again, but also like I'm finally growing into who I'm supposed to be." 3 months in, I moved in with him. It felt fast, but also inevitable. We spent every free moment together anyway, and my tiny studio apartment was expensive and depressing. Dante's house had space, had a workshop in the garage where he taught me woodworking, had a garden where we planted vegetables together. Work got easier too. I was good at my job now, confident in my abilities. The crew had figured out that Dante and I were together, and there were some jokes, some ribbing, but it was good-natured. They could see that I'd earned my place, that I worked as hard as anyone, that Dante didn't give me special treatment on the clock. Marcus pulled me aside one day, 6 months in. "You're good for him," he said. "I've known Dante for 15 years, and I've never seen him this happy. He smiles more now, laughs more. That's because of you, kid." "He's good for me, too," I said. "He changed my life." "Nah," Marcus said. "You both changed each other's lives. That's how the good ones work." A year after my first day at the docks, Dante and I took a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. We stayed in a small cabin on Orcas Island, spent our days kayaking and hiking, our nights tangled together, talking and laughing and making love with the windows open to the sound of the ocean. On our last night, we were sitting on the cabin's porch, watching the stars, and Dante pulled me closer. "Do you remember your first day?" he asked. "When you showed up looking lost?" "How could I forget? I was terrified." "I took one look at you and knew you were going to be important to me," he said. "I didn't know how, didn't know it would be this, but I knew. Something in my gut told me to pay attention, that you mattered." "I thought you were just being nice," I admitted. "Doing your job." "I was doing my job, but I was also falling for you even then. The way you were brave enough to show up and try something completely new. The way you didn't pretend to know things you didn't. The way you looked at me like I was someone worth listening to." He turned to face me fully. "You walked into my life looking lost, and somehow you helped me find something I didn't know I was missing." I kissed him, tasting salt air and wine and happiness. "You walked me through every step," I said. "You still do. Every day you show me how to be braver, stronger, better. You believe in me even when I don't believe in myself." "That's what love is," he said simply. "Believing in each other, walking each other through the hard parts, being patient while the other person learns and grows." "I love you," I said. I'd said it before, but it felt different here, under the stars. A year into this journey we'd started on a dock at 4:30 in the morning. "I love you too, Caspian, more than I thought I could love anyone." We sat there in the darkness, holding each other, and I thought about how my life had changed, how I'd taken a chance on a job I wasn't qualified for, how I'd shown up scared and uncertain, and how a man with kind eyes and patient hands had seen something in me worth nurturing, how he'd walked me through every step, not just of learning a new job, but of learning how to be loved, how to be brave enough to accept that love. I'd shown up at the port of Tacoma looking lost, and Dante had found me. But really, we'd found each other. Two people who needed exactly what the other had to offer, a teacher and a student, a foreman and a worker, but more than that, two men who looked at each other and saw home. The docks taught me how to be strong, how to work hard, how to take pride in what I do. But Dante taught me something more important. He taught me that being lost isn't a weakness. It's just the state you're in before someone who cares about you walks you through to the other side. And if you're lucky, if you're really lucky, that someone will keep walking with you, step by step, for the rest of your life.